The Fairy type is my favorite typing in all of Pokemon, and there are several fairies you can find in the Galar region, including some of my personal favorites like Gardevoir and Sylveon. And you can even find some beyond the region's limits, like Azumarill and Alolan Ninetales. It is now time for me to attempt my first Monotype run for fun in the Galar region, as I try to beat Pokemon Sword using only Fairy types. Hi there, this is Sir J.K. Gardalade welcoming you to my second Fairy Monotype run in the Pokemon game. The first one, of course, was in Pokemon Violet. And even though this is not a hardcore Nuzlocke, I will try to make this as fun and challenging for me as the player, as well as interesting and enjoyable for you as the viewer. And here are the ground rules I set in place. The first obvious one is that I can only use Fairy-type Pokemon in battle. The second rule is I'm abiding by the obedience threshold level cap, which starts at 20 and maxes out at 100 after claiming all 8 gym badges. But to avoid excessive overleveling, I will freeze the cap at level 75. The third rule, no items in battle, but held items will be allowed, which is a standard Nuzlocke rule. And so is this fourth one. If any of these fabulous fairies are to faint during an important battle, they will be permanently boxed and will never be used again. So without any further delay, let's get started. My journey through Galar starts in my hometown city of Postwick, where I chose to start this run as the female avatar. And once I left home, I was greeted by my future rival by the name of Hop, who suggested we head to the city of Wedgehurst at the train station to meet up with his brother, who just so happens to be the unbeatable champion of the Galar region, Leon. Then after meeting at Hop and Leon's home, Leon gave us the choice of any of the 3 Galar region starters, none of which gained Fairy as a secondary typing, but I went with my favorite of the bunch, the Fire-type Scorbunny. At Professor Magnolia's house, a pair of wishing stars fell from the sky. Hop gave me one of them, so we each have one. And on the next day, Professor Magnolia gave us a Dynamax band with the wishing star attached to it, which gives us the opportunity to Dynamax in future battles. Hop and I then took a train over to the wild area. And now it's time for me to finally find some Fairy types. And my first official Fairy type starter just so happened to be in a glowing purple Max Ray den. And inside it was a Cottony, which also is a grass type. After defeating the Cottony with 3 NPCs, I managed to use the regular Pokeball for the capture. Welcome Harvey to the team. This Cottony came with the more ideal Prankster ability, which means Pokemon moves that are not attacks get first priority every time. But I wanted to expand my Fairy-type team even further by heading over to the Isle of Armor, officially unlocking the first of 2 DLCs in Pokemon Sword and Shield. The first thing on my agenda was catching a Jigglypuff, and further progressing, I was able to find the Sunstone, which is needed to evolve Cottony. I then ran into a wild Alolan Diglett, which proves to be beneficial later on in my first visit to the Isle of Armor, which included catching an Azurill in Brawler's Cave. After catching the Azurill in a Great Ball, I was pleased to see that it had its best ability, Huge Power, which doubles Azurill's attack stats. Azurill and its evolutions are already slow, and it got the speed-lowering Sassy Nature, which isn't promising. And one of the sparkling items, while still in the cave, I was able to find the Moonstone, which is needed to evolve Jigglypuff. While continuously searching for lost Alolan Diglets, I also stumbled across another Max Ray den with another Fairy type in the part Steel type Klefki, which I also managed to capture and add to the team. I'm also going with an interesting nicknaming theme, as I named Jigglypuff Eubanks, I named Azurill Barker, and the recent Klefki I just caught, Kennedy. If any of you can figure out what the nicknaming theme is, be sure to freely drop your answer in the comments below, as I've found over 20 Alolan Diglett roaming around in various areas of the Isle of Armor, which is exactly what is needed to get an Alolan Vulpix, which will be a Fairy type when it fully evolves via an Ice Stone. I even got the rare 25% chance at a male Vulpix and quickly named it Trebek. I then got the Rocky Helmet item, then headed back to the wild area to get the item Leftovers, and stumbled across another Max Ray den for Togepi, whose final evolved form is a Pokemon I wanted to use in the Fairy-type run, but it's not available in Pokemon Scarlet or Pokemon Violet. After catching this future Togekiss in a Heal Ball, the weather in Rolling Fields was still overcast, which is exactly what I needed to catch my favorite all-time fairy, Ralts. After cautiously battling it, I managed to catch this female Ralts in my very first Luxury Ball attempt. Unfortunately, this Ralts came with the Adamant nature, which is exactly what a male Ralts wants, but not what a female Ralts needs. And I was able to evolve a Azumarill with high friendship into Meryl, which now gives Barker the water and fairy dual typing. I'm now in the city of Monotype. After entering the gym, I get introduced to the 8 gym leaders that I will encounter in this run, which gives me the opportunity to tell you of a 5th rule that I'm installing. I will not use the gimmick of Dynamax or Gigantamax until the opposing Pokemon trainer or gym leader has their ace Pokemon left in an area where Dynamaxing is allowed. I will admit though, walking in that stadium to hear the roar of the crowd cheering every potential Galar Gym challenger on is a thrill I get to hope to see more often in Pokemon games. Upon leaving the stadium, I got some well wishes from the onlookers at the event. I navigated through Route 3 after defeating Hop once again, and made it to Galar Mines where I was caught off at the exit by Bede. After that arrogant, pompous trainer that was endorsed by Chairman Rose was defeated, I made my way through Route 4, catching 2 more fairy types in a Milcery and the part bug type that debuted in the Alola region, Cutiefly, which is the perfect Pokemon to have considering where my first gym challenge awaits in the city of Turffield, as I will engage in battle against Grass Gym Leader Milo. Milo has a team of 2 Pokemon, but they're both from the same evolutionary line as he starts with Gossifleur. I decided to lead with Cutiefly, who immediately one-shots Gossifleur with Leech Life, a bug physical attack whose power got boosted due to the fact that I had Cutiefly hold the Silver Powder, an item that powers up bug-type attacks by 20%. Milo's second and final Pokemon is Gossifleur's evolved form of Eldegoss, which is going to Dynamax at the start of this turn, which is exactly what I do with Cutiefly. Gossifleur only has grass and normal type attacks for this gym battle. Cutiefly moves first and struck Eldegoss with a super effective Max Flutterby, a bug Dynamax move that has the added side effect of lowering the opposing Pokemon's special attack stat. Eldegoss countered with a less effective Max Overgrowth, a Grass Dynamax move that adds a grassy terrain after it hits the opposing Pokemon, healing all Pokemon that are currently on the field before Cutiefly earns the knockout with a second Max Flutterby. We now have our first gym badge in the Galar region, and as an added bonus after defeating Milo, Ralts reached level 20, evolving into Kirlia, and the obedience level cap for this run has increased to 25. Wanting to add to my fairy-type family even more, I headed back to the Isle of Armor to catch the party electric-type Dedenne before making my way back to the Galar region, as Meryl evolved into a Azumarill, who fought off 2 Team Yell grunts on its own, which gives me access to own my own Rotom bike, right before reaching the beautiful seaside city of Hulbury, which is the site of my next gym battle. After reaching the city, I made good use of that Rotom bike by hatching an egg in front of the nursery in Route 5 into the part Rock-type Carbink, giving me another addition to my Fairy-type family. And after finding a Sunstone, I used it to evolve Cottonee into Whimsicott. I now have electric and grass coverage to combat the Hulbury Gym, which is led by its leader Nessa, a master of water types. I led off with the Dene, lowering the attack stat of Nessa's first Pokemon Goldeen by 2 stages by using Charm, but on that turn, Goldeen sharply boosted speed by using Agility, which allowed for Goldeen to move faster on the second turn and hit with a water special attack Water Pulse. I slowed things down again by having the Dene paralyze Goldeen with Nuzzle. Goldeen was forced to boost its speed up again by using Agility before it gets knocked out by the Dene's second Thundershock. I kept the Dene in to deal with the second Pokemon Nessa brought out in Arrokuda, who moved first with the priority Aqua Jet before it gets hit by another Nuzzle attack, which got the full paralysis on Arrokuda, preventing it from using Aqua Jet before it went down to the Dene's next Thundershock. I decided to swap out the Dene and bring in Harvey the Whimsicott to throw down against Nessa's ace Pokemon Dreadnought, a Pokemon that also doubles as a Rock type, which is the main reason why I had Whimsicott for this gym battle. Dreadnought is one of few Pokemon in Sword and Shield that has a Gigantamax form, but for this Holeberry gym battle, you'll only see Dreadnought in its Dynamax form. Dreadnought can set up the rain when it hits the Water Dynamax move Max Geyser. But on this day, Harvey has other plans, as he absolutely obliterates Dynamax Dreadnought with a quad-effective Max Overgrowth, capping off a rousing and decisive victory for my fabulous fairies in securing our second gym badge. Now the obedience threshold level cap rises up to 30 with 6 more badges that are left to be won. Now that I have 2 badges and the obedience level cap has risen to 30, my fairy types are about to get a massive upgrade as Togepi finally got high enough friendship to evolve the Togetic. And at level 25, Cutiefly evolves into Ribombee. And I also used a shiny stone that I found while in the wild area to immediately evolve Togetic into Togekiss. After those critical evolutions, I left the city of Hulbury and entered into Galar Mine number 2, where I was once again confronted by Bede, who was looking for some payback after being outright embarrassed by a Ralts. Bro, you just got dog-walked by a bug! I have now returned to the gorgeous city of Monostoke, the place where I was at earlier for the opening ceremonies of the Galar Region Gym Challenge. I now return to the gym all decked out in red for a gym battle against Fire Gym Leader Kabu, the first gym of Sword and Shield where you go up against a gym leader with a team of fully evolved Pokemon. This is the gym that normally provides the first difficulty spike, but fortunately for me, I have 2 fairy types that have another typing that is super effective against fire types, like Kabu's first Pokemon being Ninetales, and I chose to start off this gym battle with Carbink, for the sole reason that Ninetales loves to burn opposing Pokemon with Will-O-Wisp, and when an opposing Pokemon suffers burn status, it cuts in half damage done by physical attacks. After I had Carbink set up Stealth Rocks on its first turn, Ninetales trapped Regis in a Fire Spin. Then I had Carbink's sharply boosted speed by 2 stages with Rock Polish, allowing for Carbink to hit a super effective ground special attack, Earth Power, on the next turn. Ninetales has a full attacking set that Carbink completely resists, considering Ninetales has Quick Attack, Ember, and Fire Spin. Ninetales hit 1 more Ember attack before going down to the combination of Smackdown, which power was reduced because of the burn, and Earth Power for the knockout. Carbink was brought down to 16 HP, and I briefly kept Carbink in to soak up the Intimidate of Kabu's second Pokemon, Arcanine, which lost a quarter of its HP once it entered into battle because of the Stealth Rocks Carbink set up. I immediately swapped Carbink out in favor of Azumarill, seeing that Arcanine was once again gonna go with Will-O-Wisp to burn Azumarill briefly because I came prepared, giving Azumarill a Rostberry to cure itself from the burn, before Azumarill wipes out Arcanine with a huge power-boosted liquidation. And now Kabu's only left with his ace Pokemon, the Fire and Bug-type Centiskorch, which lost half of its HP because of the Stealth Rocks. But because Azumarill has a speed-lowering nature, Kabu was able to move first, giving us a first-hand look at Gigantamax Centiskorch. Centiskorch has the ability Flash Fire, but has only 2 attacking moves that Azumarill both resists, being Flame Wheel and Bug Bite. But while Gigantamaxed, Flame Wheel becomes the hard-hitting G-Max Centinferno, which acts just like Fire Spin, trapping Azumarill in. But Azumarill frees itself instantly by defeating Gigantamax Centiskorch with a powerful Max Geyser. That's 3 gym badges claimed by my fabulous fairies and I, raising the obedience level cap to 35. But before leaving Motostoke once again alongside my rival Hop, the gym leaders Nessa, Milo, and Kabu see us off, encouraging us before we make our way to our next destination. Upon departure from Motostoke, I was able to catch the Poison-type Coughing, whose Galarian evolution adds the Fairy typing to it. And it was at that point my favorite fairy of them all finally reached level 30. Now that the power of my Fairy-type family got bolstered by the evolution of Gardevoir, I stroll into my favorite city in all of the Galar region with confidence, the medieval-like town of Hammerlock. But I'm only there for a brief moment to earn myself a flower suite, attach it to Milcery, spin around for a while in front of the Pokemon Center to evolve Milcery holding the flower suite into the vanilla cream form of Alcremie. And at level 36, Coughing evolved into the Poison and Fairy dual-typing Galarian Weezing, as I made my way to the next destination for Gym Battle number 4, the odd-sounding city of Stowonside. But before challenging the gym, I made a pit stop nearby at Glenwood Tangle to catch one of Galar region's greatest gifts, Impidimp, a Fairy and Dark dual-typing, which I managed to catch in a Luxury Ball, and it evolved at level 32 into its middle stage evolution, Morgrem. The Stowonside Gym in Pokemon Sword is a fighting-type gym, where you go up against the Sword-exclusive fighting-type gym leader Bede, the perfect place for Gardevoir to be showcased for the first time, considering Gardevoir is also a Psychic type, meaning that Gardevoir quad-resists any fighting-type attacks. On top of that, Bede has an abusable lead Pokemon in Hitmontop, who only has fighting and normal-type attacks, meaning Hitmontop's best attack against Gardevoir is the normal priority quick attack, which allowed for me to have Gardevoir set up its special attack and special defense by one stage on the first 3 turns of this fight by using Calm Mind. And after setting up 3 Calm Minds, Bede was forced into a checkmate, as her entire team gets absolutely swept by Gardevoir using Dazzling Gleam, a Fairy special attack that Gardevoir learns instantly once it evolves at level 30 from Kirlia. And at plus 3 in special attack, this Max Starfall attack was complete overkill, eradicating Bede's ace Pokemon Gigantamax Machamp. Vanna cleans house for our 4th gym badge, and the obedience level cap jumps up to 40. After leaving the gym, an explosion happened near a mural that was right outside the gym, so I went over to investigate, where I was once again challenged to battle by Bede, but his team of 4 Psychic types were no match, as the combination of Morgrem and Gardevoir administered a well-deserved decisive beatdown so lopsided it forced Bede to get kicked out of the gym challenge altogether. I'm sure that self-entitled brat will show up at some point one more time in this run, but until that happens, I head to a Fairy-type Pokemon lover's dream city in Balonea, where my 5th gym battle will take place against Fairy-type gym leader Opal, who has a team of 4 Fairy types, and I only went up against Opal's team with 1, Klefki. And Opal's gym It's the proverbial gimmick gym in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Opal will quiz you 3 separate times during the match. All you have to do is correctly answer those questions, and you'll get a double Omni boost to all 5 of that Pokemon's stats. You get a stat decrease, however, if you're incorrect on any of those 3 questions. Klefki is also a Steel type, which makes it the perfect Pokemon to have for this gym fight, considering Opal's first Pokemon, Weezing, can't even touch Klefki with its poison attack Sludge, and Klefki also resists Weezing's other 2 attacks, Fairy Wind and Tackle. On every alternating turn, I had Klefki use Protect, and also set up both a Reflect and a Light Screen before taking out Weezing with a super effective Flash Cannon. Klefki is one of 3 fairy types that I've caught in this run that has the Prankster ability, which I put to good use against Opal's second Pokemon, Mawile, by once again setting up a Light Screen, which cuts in half damage done by special attacks, before finishing off Mawile with a Flash Cannon. Opal's third Pokemon, her own Togekiss, also gets domed by a Flash Cannon, which turns into Max Steel Spike now that I Dynamax Klefki to eradicate Opal's ace Pokemon, Gigantamax Alcremie. Another convincing gym battle victory for yours truly and my fabulous fairy types, as we raise the obedience level cap to 45. Next on the agenda for my fabulous fairies and I is to reach the snowy city of Sirchester, which is the site of gym battle number 6. But I needed some more fairy type reinforcements, so I hatched a couple of eggs, and hatching the part ghost type Mimikyu, and a shield exclusive Galarian Ponyta. And then I went to the wild area through Hammerlock Hills, and encountered a purple glowing den, which featured another fairy type with the secondary steel typing, Mawile. It doesn't hurt to find another fairy type that's got the secondary steel typing with an immunity to poison type attacks, and Mawile just might be the best of the bunch, as I managed to catch Mawile in a luxury ball after defeating the Max Raid Den. And while picking up other items and checking other dens, this happened. That's the second time it's happened to me in a Pokemon game, as I managed to find a full odds shiny Bunnelby. Unfortunately, it's not a fairy type, but the next 2 Pokemon are, as at level 42, I evolved Dawson into Grimmsnarl, and at level 40, Marshall evolves into Galarian Rapidash, giving me my second Fairy and Psychic dual typing. And I finally used that Moonstone to evolve Jigglypuff into Wigglytuff. Now let's get to the gym battle, against another Sword exclusive Rock Gym Leader Gordy, whose first Pokemon is Barbaracle, which is also a Water type. So it made perfect sense for me to start this battle off with Harvey the Whimsicott, who scored the quick KO with a quad-effective Giga Drain, and I immediately swapped in my newest acquisition in Mawile to step up against Gordy's second Pokemon, the Park Bug type Shuckle, which has a high defense stat but a very low attack stat. So I simply had Mawile trade attacks for 3 turns, eventually knocking out Shuckle with a pair of Iron Head attacks. Coming out third for Gordy is Stone Joiner, who set up Stealth Rocks on the first turn right after I swapped in Azumarill, who went on the aggressive with Liquidation. After losing over half of its HP, Stone Joiner decided to set up a Wonder Room to swap defense and special defense stats for a while before going down to a second huge power boosted Liquidation from Azumarill, who I swapped out in favor of Grimmsnarl because Gordy's ace Pokemon is Colossal, which has the ability Steam Engine. Whenever it gets hit by a water type attack, which Colossal is 4 times weak to because it's also a fire type, it will drastically increase the speed stat of Colossal by 3 stages, so I did not want to run that risk of Colossal getting that boost and potentially sweeping my entire team. Oh yeah, Colossal just Gigantamaxed, which is exactly what Grimmsnarl can do, but it's in its Dynamax form, connecting with the fighting Dynamax move Max Knuckle to increase Grimmsnarl's attack stats. After Colossal set up the sun by hitting Max Flare, the next Max Knuckle from Grimmsnarl did slightly more damage. But here comes Colossal's signature maneuver once it's fully Gigantamaxed, G-Max Vocalith, a rock attack that does damage over time after it strikes the opposing Pokemon. Kind of ironic and lucky that the rocks from G-Max Vocalith left Grimmsnarl to just 13 hit points remaining before this third and final Max Knuckle puts Colossal down and ends this gym battle. Gordy's rocks are officially crushed. I now have 6 gym badges in Galar, and the obedience level cap has now reached 50. After defeating Gordy and later my rival Hop once again, I cleared out Team Yell to give my Rotom bike the ability to tread across water so that I can get the Ice Stone so that one of my fairy types can finally get off the bench and contribute, as it now can evolve into a Alolan Ninetales. Adding some chill to my fairy type roster, I now headed for the city of Spikemuth to challenge for my 7th gym badge. But the town was closed down. But from a distance, another rival emerged, and her name is Marnie, who gave me access to the city, provided I beat her in battle first, and I was able to take down her dark types with the combination of Togekiss, Mimikyu, and Gardevoir. Spikemuth is a gothic town that has a gym leader that specializes in dark types, and that just so happens to be Marnie's brother, Piers. The dark types is one of the types that fairy types feast on, and Piers' first Pokemon just so happens to be a Pokemon that's quad-weak to fairy types in the part fighting type Scrafty. I started with the Dene to soak up the Intimidate ability, considering the Dene has a special attacking moveset. Scrafty got a flinch with Fake Out and attacked with a critical hit Brick Break after surviving a play rough before Dedenne gave Scrafty a dishonorable discharge. Piers' second Pokemon is the part Psychic type Malamar, who got absolutely destroyed by Ribombi's quad-effective Pollen Puff. I kept Ribombi in to deal with Piers' third Pokemon, Obstagoon, which is also a normal type. Obstagoon uses Obstruct, which not only protects Obstagoon from an attack, it lowers the opposing Pokemon's defense by 2 stages if it used a physical attack to go after Obstagoon, which is the main reason why I kept Ribombi in, knocking out Obstagoon with a critical hit Dazzling Gleam. Krakowski did her job perfectly, so now it's up to Marshall, the Galarian Rapidash, to finish the fight off against the final Pokemon that Piers brought out in the part Poison type Skuntank, who's only faster than Rapidash because it has the dark priority physical attack Sucker Punch. So I had Marshall trade attacks on the 2 turns, finishing off Skuntank with a second ground physical attack high horsepower. But hold on a second. Skuntank's Aftermath ability did some damage on the way out, leaving Rapidash with 4 hit points before I escaped Spikemuth with my 7th gym badge, raising the obedience level cap to 55. That was too close for comfort, but my fabulous fairy types managed to pull through for the W. I was not done with my Spikemuth experience just yet, as after I defeated Piers, I managed to get the choice specs and then got a matching choice band now that I can ride across water with my Rotom bike. I also encountered another max raid den for another grass and fairy dual typing Shiinotic, making the capture after defeating Shiinotic in an Ultra Ball. And while I was still in the wild area, getting some watts while visiting max raid dens, I went to the Lake of Outrage to pick up another held item in the Assault Vest. I then made another quick trip to the Isle of Armor so that Alcremie and Grimmsnarl can gain the ability to Gigantamax after feeding them both Max Soup, before returning to the city of Hammerlock for my 8th and final gym badge against Dragon-type gym leader Raihan. who specializes in the art of controlling the weather, as I start things off with Togekiss and Alcremie to go up against the first two Pokemon Raihan brought out in Flygon and the not-so-dragon type Gigalith, who sets up the Sandstorm with its Sandstream ability. I had Togekiss protect itself on turn 1, but Flygon attacked Alcremie instead with a super effective Steel Wing. Alcremie, however, used Decorate on Togekiss, sharply boosting its attack and special attack stat by 2 stages, and Protect was the correct call as Gigalith went for the multi-hit Rock Blast, which would hit from 2 to 5 times if I didn't use Protect, and it probably would have finished Togekiss off immediately. Flygon then struck for a third of Togekiss's health with a super effective Thunder Punch before Togekiss retaliated by knocking out Gigalith with a +2 fighting special attack Aura Sphere. Shortly after, Alcremie made sure that Raihan's second Pokemon was Flygon, compliments of Dazzling Gleam, leaving Raihan with his final 2 Pokemon, the Part Ground-type Sandaconda, and his ace Pokemon, the Dragon and Steel-type Duraludon. Alcremie was the only one on the field taking Sandstorm damage because Togekiss was wearing safety goggles. I briefly swapped out Alcremie and brought Mawile in to drop an Intimidate on Raihan's 2 Pokemon, lowering their attack stats by a stage, right as Raihan is about to Gigantamax Duraludon. And because I swapped out Alcremie, I decided to Dynamax Togekiss, which means Alcremie won't turn into a giant wedding cake for now. Duraludon struck first with a super effective Max Rockfall, which was at -1 power because of Mawile's Intimidate, allowing for Togekiss to survive and knock out Duraludon with a Max Knuckle. Getting rid of Duraludon permanently and promptly from the battle was extremely important, as Sandaconda slowed down Togekiss with paralysis by using Glare. It then hit Mawile with a super effective Earth Power, considering I had Togekiss protect itself with Max Guard. On the next turn, I brought Alcremie back in to take the next high horsepower, opening the door for Togekiss to lower the boom on Sandaconda for the final KO with a +2 Max Starfall. Double battles in traditional Pokemon games sure are fun, especially this one against Raihan, as I collect the 8th and final gym badge in the Galar region, which completely maxes out the obedience threshold level cap to 100. But as per my Monotype Run for Fun rules, I freeze the cap at level 75, which means I've officially qualified for the Pokemon League in the Galar region called the Champions Cup. Before moving on to the Cup, I still need to catch 2 more Pokemon to round out my Fairy-type roster of Pokemon, starting with catching an Eevee in a Friend Ball. And while traveling along with Eevee to max out its friendship, I caught the final Fairy type of the run, Comfey, and that's all it took to evolve Eevee into my second favorite all-time Fairy type, Sylveon. Now that I've claimed all 8 badges, it was time to bid farewell to the city of Hammerlock, and I was able to do so with a lot of encouragement from the onlookers as I met up with Hop at the Hammerlock train station, as we now head to the largest city in all of the Galar region, where all the hottest battles will take place, the wonderful city of Winden, which has 2 Pokemon centers, a lavish hotel, the most expensive clothing shop, a nice cafe, and home to the Rose Tower and Winden Stadium, where the Champion Cup will take place. Hob, wanting to rush into the Winden Stadium right away, is already declaring himself to be the new champion of the Galar region. But Gardelade is a proud fashionista, as I decided to take things slow and visit the shopping malls of Winden, Hammerlock, and Motostoke, while also going to the next door Motostoke hair salon to give Gardelade the full Marnie-style look before returning to Winden and visit the Pokemon Center near Winden Stadium to get all 3 Elemental Punch TMs and the Drain Punch TM, which many of my fairy types can potentially learn as I make my way to Winden Stadium to get registered for the Champion Cup. I'm one of 4 trainers that are in the semifinals. Win 2 matches in a row, I reach the finals. And it just so happens that my first opponent in the Champion Cup semifinals is the same trainer that I decided to model myself after style-wise in Marnie, who now carries a team of 5 dark types, including her first Pokemon, Liepard. This Champions Cup match gives me the perfect chance to show off Sylveon for the first time in battle. Marnie decides to have Liepard set up a special attack by 2 stages with Nasty Plot before it gets wiped out by Sylveon's Moonblast. Technically, Marnie is a Dark-type trainer, but only has 4 Dark types, because her next Pokemon is the Poison and Fighting-type Toxicroak, who was about to poison Sylveon with Toxic, so I swapped out and brought in Bede the Mawile. After avoiding the Toxic due to Steel-type immunity, Toxicroak decides to be a nuisance and use Swagger, which boosts Mawile's attack stat by 2 stages at the cost of Mawile being confused. But I prepared for this scenario by equipping Mawile with a Lumberry, and then I set up its attack 2 more stages by using Swords Dance. Toxicroak again uses Swagger on the next turn to fully max out Mawile's attack stat. Mawile thankfully didn't hit itself in this confusion but whiffed on Play Rough, before on the next turn, Toxicroak and Mawile crit each other with a resistant Sucker Punch from Toxicroak, who then got knocked out by Mawile's Iron Head. Mawile then snapped out of confusion before obliterating Scrafty with a quad-effective +6 Play Rough. At this point, it was ball game. Morpeko decided to torment Mawile, which is exactly what I wanted, before Morpeko got one-shot by a Play Rough, leaving Marnie with her ace Pokemon that she did not use the first time I went up against her before entering Spikemuth in her very own Grimmsnarl. And since Winden Stadium is a power spot, that gives me the freedom to Dynamax Mawile right before Marnie decides to Gigantamax Grimmsnarl. Morpeko's Torments prevented Mawile from using the same attack twice in a row, which is great for me considering Grimmsnarl, also being a fairy type, is susceptibly weak and goes down quick to a +6 max Steel Spike. And with that, my fairy types asserted early dominance in the Champions Cup with a resounding victory over Marnie. In the other Champion Cup semifinal, Hop breezed right through his opponent, setting the stage for a final showdown between us for the right to reach the Champion Cup finals. Hop has a well-balanced team of 5, with 3 of his Pokemon having a super effective attack against fairy types, one of which is not his first Pokemon, Dubwool, as I started things off with Togekiss, who was able to take Dubwool down to the limits of its HP and get a flinch because it was holding a King's Rock with Aura Sphere, but it also triggered Dubwool's Steadfast ability, giving it a speed boost. After Hop healed up with a full restore, I had Togekiss attack with Dazzling Gleam before taking out Dubwool with a second Aura Sphere. Hop then summons in the electric-type Pincurchin as I swapped in Grimmsnarl, who hit first with a super effective ground physical attack Stomping Tantrum. Then Pincurchin retaliated with a super effective Poison Jab, which struck Grimmsnarl for sizable damage because it was a critical hit. But Hop's confidence got knocked back down a notch when Grimmsnarl earned the KO with a second Stomping Tantrum. Hop's next threat to fairies is the Steel and Flying-type Corviknight, so I brought in Vanna the Gardevoir, holding the choice specs to one-shot Corviknight with a Thunderbolt. Hop's 4th Pokemon is one of the Kanto region favorites, Snorlax, which does threaten with the Steel physical attack Heavy Slam, so I countered with the huge power of Barker the Azumarill. Heavy Slam only strikes Azumarill for neutral damage before Snorlax gets wiped out by a second huge power boosted Brick Break. Hop has officially ran out of options and is running even lower on hope, as his final Pokemon left standing is the Galar region grass starter Rillaboom, giving me the perfect opportunity to showcase for the first time in battle throughout this entire run Trebek, the Alolan Ninetales, who upon entry sets up the Hail with its Snow Warning ability right before I Dynamax Alolan Ninetales. Sword and Shield is the last game in the Pokemon series where Hail is set up with its Snow Warning ability, considering it was changed to straight up Snow in Generation 9 when Pokemon Scarlet and Violet were released. Ninetales took Rillaboom down to red health with a Max Hailstorm, before Rillaboom used Max Overgrowth, which strikes Ninetales for neutral damage and creates a grassy terrain, slightly healing up both Pokemon on the field before Rillaboom gets wiped out for good with a second Max Hailstorm. Down goes Hop's useless proclamation of him being the next Galar champion, as I'm the one that moves on to the Champion Cup Finals. After my businesslike win over Hop, we head to the top of Rose Tower so we can finally have our dinner with Hop's big brother Leon, who was in a meeting with Macrocosmos Chairman Rose, who for some perverse reason thinks the future of the Galar region is in jeopardy. And before we can talk some sense into Rose so we can finally have our dinner and get our grub on, we're intercepted by Oleana, who demanded I battle her. This mad lady still has a strong team of 5 Pokemon, including her lead Pokemon, the Ghost and Ice type Frostlass, as I led off this bout with Mawile. On the opening turn, Frostlass burns Mawile to cut its attack power in half with Will-O-Wisp. But of course, I was one step ahead, giving Mawile a Rostberry to heal the burn off before Frostlass gets annihilated by a super effective Iron Head. Oleana's second Pokemon is Salazzle, a poison and fire type, threatening the existence of Mawile with a super effective fire attack. So I brought in my water fairy type Azumarill to counter Salazzle. After taking the super effective Venoshock, Salazzle gets one shot by liquidation. Oleana then summons in the grass type from the Alola region Serena out third, so I swapped out in favor of Trebek the Ninetales, setting up the Hail upon entry, and then on the first turn I immediately used Aurora Veil, which will boost the defenses of my entire team for 5 turns, but Ninetales is also holding an Icy Rock, which will make the Hail last for 8 turns instead of 5. Then Serena gets decimated by the Blizzard of Ninetales, which is now 100% accurate in the Hailstorm. Oleana's 4th Pokemon is Milotic, so I swapped in Harvey the Whimsicott, taking off half of Milotic's health with Giga Drain. Milotic wanted to gain some sustainability in its HP by using Aqua Ring. It then set up Safeguard after being taken down to the red with a second Giga Drain from Whimsicott, which brought Milotic down to literally 1 HP remaining. But the Hail eventually does Milotic in, leaving Oleana with her ace Pokemon, the pure poison type Garbodor. I brought Mawile back into action to drop an Intimidate and lower Garbodor's attack stat before Oleana turns her precious ace into a literal giant trash bag. I also swapped out Whimsicott, who is quad weak to poison, to bait Oleana into going for Garbodor's signature move, G-Max Malodor, which Mawile is immune to. Ninetales Aurora Veil wore off, and knowing that Garbodor is going for Max Quake, I swapped in Woolery, the Galarian Weezing, who's normally weak to ground type attacks, except I caught this Weezing as a Coughing with the Levitate ability, making it immune to ground type attacks. On the final turn of Dynamax, I had Weezing protect itself, but Garbodor will still do damage and set up a Sandstorm when it hit Weezing with Max Rockfall. And as both our Pokemon took Sandstorm and Hail chip damage at the end of the turn, Garbodor shrunk back down to its normal size, which is when I made the decision to swap Mawile back in to drop another Intimidate to put the attack stat of Garbodor down to a -2. Oleana wasted the turn by setting up Toxic Spikes, which will affect all of my other fairy types except for Weezing, which will remove the Toxic Spikes altogether because of its poison typing, and Mawile because of its steel typing. Mawile lost half of its health due to 2 stomping tantrums before running over Garbodor with a critical hit Iron Head for the knockout and another victory for my fabulous fairy types. After that preemptive interruption, I made it back to Winden Stadium to participate in the Champion Cup Finals. I am placed in a tournament against all the Galar region gym leaders to determine who will be the greatest challenger and ultimately face champion Leon. But before the bracket even gets revealed, the festivities get interrupted by a certain party crasher named Bede. The same psychic-type trainer that I have completely humiliated since the start of my journey, now all of a sudden got recruited by Opal and has become the new Fairy-type gym leader in the Galar region. Bede is also not thinking with a clear head, as he's putting his entire career of Pokemon battling on the line just for the opportunity to try and beat me once and for all. Every single man, woman, child, and Pokemon inside Winden Stadium is about to get their money's worth, as Leon is allowing for this battle to happen, even though it's not a part of the Galar Gym Challenge. Just like my previous 2 battles with him, Bede has a team of 4 Pokemon, slightly worked up now that it's all a Fairy-type team. He leads with his own Mawile, so I brought my own to also lead off the fight, both intimidating each other to lower their attack stats each by 1. But to prove that my Mawile is better than his, I made sure Mawile had Fire Fang in its moveset to deal super effective damage. Bede tried to delay the inevitable by healing up his Mawile with Full Restore, but my Mawile just kept attacking on the next 2 turns, spamming Fire Fang until the 5th turn, when I used Iron Head to get the knockout, even getting a crit to rub it in Bede's face. The rest of this fight turned into a personal house of horrors for Bede, as I brought in Mimikyu to take down Bede's familiar remaining 3 Pokemon, which all now gain the Fairy typing. I gave Mimikyu the Scope Lens to boost critical hit ratio, evidenced by the Shadow Claw, which took out Bede's own Gardevoir. It also one-shot the 3rd Pokemon Bede brought out in his own Galarian Rapidash without needing a critical hit. And Bede is now left with his ace Pokemon, Gigantamax Hatterene, which is the only Fairy type I wasn't able to get in this entire run, even though Hatenna and Hatterene can be caught very early, but they are natural Psychic types that don't gain the Fairy typing until it evolves into Hatterene at level 42. Mimikyu, after Dynamaxing, was able to strike first with the Ghost Max Move Max Phantasm, which has the added effect of lowering the target's physical defense by 1. Hatterene countered with Max Mindstorm, the Psychic Max move that also was the hit needed to bust Mimikyu's disguise. But even that would not be enough, as Mimikyu landed a 2nd Max Phantasm to wipe out Gigantamax Hatterene, completing a gentleman's sweep of this fight, proving to Bede who the strongest Fairy-type user is in all of the Galar region. The Champion Cup Finals are rematches against 3 of the gym leaders in the Galar region's own version of the Elite Four. Dealing with Nessa first, as this rematch was no different than the gym battle we had. Dedenne wiped out her first 4 Pokemon, Volt switching out against Pelipper so that Whimsicott can deal the final blow. Harvey lets the grass grow in destroying Nessa's ace Pokemon Gigantamax Dreadnought with a quad-effective Max Overgrowth. With Nessa defeated, I can now move on to the second battle of the Champion Cup Finals, a rematch with Fighting-type gym leader Bede, where her first 4 Pokemon gets taken on a trip to Moonblast City before her ace Pokemon Gigantamax Machamp went down to 3 Max Starfalls from Gardevoir. Vanna got her broom out and completed another sweep of Bede's fighting types, but the third battle against Raihan in another rematch proved to be more of a challenge for my Fairy types, as Raihan leads off with Torkoal to set up the sun immediately with its Drought ability. I had Regis the Carbink start off by setting up Stealth Rocks to apply pressure on the rest of his team before getting nailed by Torkoal's Solar Beam, a grass special attack that lasts 2 turns if there was no sun up. Anticipating another Solar Beam, I had Regis protect itself. Then on the 3rd turn, I had Carbink go on the aggressive by hitting a super effective rock special attack Power Gem before Torkoal surprisingly used Yawn. A second power gem took out the fire turtle. At the end of the turn, Carbig was put to sleep briefly, but I had Carbig hold a Lumberry to instantly wake up, right before Raihan brought out his second Pokemon, Flygon. Thinking that Flygon was going for Earthquake on turn 1, I swapped out and brought a Azumarill in. But all Flygon did was set up a Sandstorm, before hitting Azumarill with an Earthquake on the next turn, before going down to Azumarill's huge power-boosted Play Rough. And as Barker gets buffeted by the Sandstorm, I elected to keep Azumarill in, considering Raihan is about to bring out Goodra third. Goodra will more than likely set up Rain Dance on turn 1, to make its electric special attack Thunder 100% accurate, and that led to Goodra's demise as it immediately gets one-shot by another round of rough play. Raihan's fourth Pokemon is the Dragon and Fire dual typing from the Alola region in Turtonator. So I swapped in the Choice Band wearing Grimmsnarl, who struck immediately on turn 1 with Stomping Tantrum. And all Raihan did was once again change the weather by having Turtonator use Sunny Day. It then set up a Shell Trap, but was never able to use it as it got wiped out by a second Stomping Tantrum by Grimmsnarl, leaving Raihan with his familiar ace Pokemon in Gigantamax Duraludon. Even though Duraludon has a super effective Rock-type move and a Steel-type move, I still had the audacity to bring out my Fairy and Flying dual-typing Sajak the Togekiss. In order for Raihan to change the weather one more time, it has to have Duraludon use Max Rockfall to set up a Sandstorm again. That way Togekiss can take extra damage at the end of every single turn for 5 straight turns, which is exactly why I gave Togekiss a Charty Berry that cuts in half damage done by super effective rock-type attacks. And in this case, I'm glad I went with that strategy because this Max Rockfall landed a critical hit. And once Sandstorm once again enters the battlefield, Togekiss struck back with a super effective Max Knuckle. But the negative effect of giving Togekiss a Charty Berry, it means that Togekiss now has to take a full force Max Steel Spike. That Togekiss barely hung on at 16 HP. Even the defense boost Duraludon gets after hitting Max Steel Spike is of no significance as a second Max Knuckle ends the fight. After another tense victory over Raihan, I can now challenge the undefeated Leon in the final Champions Cup match. After a day of rest, I headed back to Wyndon Stadium to feel the roar of the crowd as I challenged the unbeatable champion. But before Leon and I reveal our first Pokemon, we got yet another interruption on the big screen from Macrocosmos Chairman Rose, who reveals his sinister plan of erasing all of the Galar region and everyone in it by unleashing the darkest day. This lunatic has finally gone completely insane, inducing Dynamax power all over the region, which may cause Pokemon to grow large and destroy every single town in the region. In his warped mind, he's protecting the future of Galar. But I know otherwise, and I plan to take him down. This battle is yet another challenge for my Fairy types to overcome because Rose has 5 Steel-type Pokemon. All 5 of them are cripplingly weak to Fire-type attacks, and fortunately Togekiss can learn Flamethrower by TR. After incinerating Rose's first Pokemon, Escavalier, with a quad-effective Flamethrower, I swapped out and brought Azumarill in to deal with Rose's fastest Pokemon, Clink Clang, who struck Azumarill with a super effective electric attack Wild Charge before Azumarill retaliated with a ground physical attack Bulldoze, which scored a critical hit in taking Clink Clang out. I then swapped back in Togekiss to take out Rose's next 2 Pokemon, the Park Grass-type Ferrothorn with another quad-effective Flamethrower, and then Berserker suffered the exact same fate as it too got engulfed in flames. Rose's final Pokemon is a bulky one in Gigantamax Copperajah, a pure physical attacker, which is why I brought Mawile in to drop an immediate Intimidate. With Copperajah now at a -1 in attack, I immediately swapped Togekiss back in right before Rose Gigantamaxes his precious ironclad elephant partner. The main reason why I also brought Mawile in briefly was to sucker Rose into going for Max Quake, which Togekiss can't get hit by due to its part flying typing. I then Dynamaxed Togekiss, which got its special attack boosted the moment I started the fight because it was already wearing the choice specs. This boosted Max Flare from Togekiss not only struck Copperajah for slightly over half of its large HP, it also set up the Sun, right before Copperajah struck Togekiss with a super effective G-Max Steel Surge. But that is all she wrote for Rose, as Togekiss's final Max Flare turns Copperajah into a piece of burned toast, putting an effective stop to Rose's evil plans of destroying the Galar region. Not only did this loss hurt Rose's pride, I also made sure it hurt Rose's wallet too, because I had Mawile hold the amulet coin, meaning that I earned double the prize money after I defeated Rose. From there, it was up to Hop, Leon, and myself to save all of Galar from the rampaging Eternamax Eternatus, as we got a massive assist from the Sword and Shield legendary Pokemon Zacian and Zamazenta. All that weird energy has been cleared, and the sun can shine again. 3 days after the chaos that crooked Chairman Rose put the entire Galar region through came to an end when I caught the legendary Eternatus, I made it back to Winden Stadium to finally have some champion time, as the long-awaited Champion Cup final battle can finally take place, as I stand toe-to-toe against the undefeated champion Leon in front of a standing room only sold-out crowd. Leon is filled to the brim with a diverse, heavy-hitting team of Pokemon that has so much coverage to counter any type, especially fairy types, considering his 2 dragon types both can hit super effectively against the team I landed myself with for this battle. But my fairy types have proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that it is my favorite type and one of the strongest types in all of Pokemon. My 6 chosen ones entered into this battle at level 65, the same level that Leon's ace Pokemon Charizard is at. But before we even get to Charizard, we must deal with Leon's first Pokemon Aegislash first. And since Aegislash is a steel type, my first fairy of choice for this final fight also just so happens to be a steel type in Mawile. After lowering Aegislash's attack stat by 1 with Intimidate, I decided to use this first turn by setting up Stealth Rocks, considering Aegislash always loves to go for King Shield on the first turn. Mawile then on the next turn struck first with a super effective Crunch, and then Aegislash switched into its attack form, retaliating with a devastating Shadow Ball that struck for over half of Mawile's health, but instead of healing up with a full restore, Leon decided to stay in attack mode, and that caused him to lose Aegislash after Mawile got the KO with Crunch. With 1 Pokemon down, Leon summoned in Haxorus second. Considering outside of Dragon Claw, which can't hit fairies, his other 3 attacks can hit super effectively on all of my fairy types, including Azumarill, moving first and delivering a poison jab that struck for sizable damage, and it also got the poison. But Barker managed to suck it up, destroying Haxorus with a huge power-boosted Play Rough, which was not going to miss because of the fact that Azumarill was holding the wide lens. However, the poison from Haxorus' poison jab dropped Azumarill down to 62 HP, so I decided to swap out and bring in Grimmsnarl to deal with Leon's 3rd Pokemon, the Galar region pseudo-legendary Dragapult. And here is my brain freeze moment of the run, when I had Grimmsnarl set up its attack and defense with Bulk Up before taking Dragapult's Flamethrower. But because Grimmsnarl is holding a Choice Scarf, it can only use Bulk Up. That's when I decided to make a very critical decision in swapping in Whimsicott to take the next Flamethrower. Newsflash, Whimsicott is also a grass type, and grass easily gets engulfed in flames. This mistake nearly cost me my Whimsicott and put an end to my plans of a deathless fairy-only run in the second Pokemon game. Whimsicott not only got burned by Flamethrower, it was left with 25 HP, but fortunately, my brain power recovered quickly when I swapped back in Grimmsnarl to take another Flamethrower. On the very next turn, I was rewarded as my luck went from seemingly bad to exceedingly good with a critical hit Sucker Punch that took Dragapult out. It was at that point I was quick to remind myself that Dragapult's full moveset were nothing but attacks, which is why I should have had Grimmsnarl deliver a Sucker Punch in the first place. And since Leon's Dragapult loves to use Flamethrower, I decided to bring out my Fairy type that had that move in its moveset in Togekiss as it went up against Leon's fourth Pokemon, Mr. Rime, who retaliated by nailing Togekiss with a super effective Freeze Dry. Then Leon makes his biggest mistake of the fight, healing up Mr. Rime completely with a full restore, which meant Mr. Rime was about to get burned at the stake, as Togekiss gets a completely free KO with 2 more Flamethrowers. Down to his final 2 Pokemon, Leon's undefeated streak is in jeopardy, as I brought back in a still burned Whimsicott to one-shot Leon's penultimate Pokemon, the Water Lizard starter Inteleon with a Giga Drain, which got Whimsicott back to green health. But there was no way I was going to keep Whimsicott in, even as a bait and switch, considering Leon's final Pokemon is the previously mentioned Charizard. And the final Pokemon on my team that had yet to see action is the same one I strategically saved for this moment, in Vanna, the glorious Gardevoir. And here's where the Stealth Rocks set up by Mawile come into play, as Charizard, upon entry, lost half of his HP immediately due to the fact that the Kanto region fire starter is also a flying type. Leon was able to pull the trigger first in Gigantamaxing his precious partner. Then I was able to do the same in Dynamaxing Gardevoir, who was holding the choice specs for this championship bout. Charizard struck Gardevoir first with Max Airstream, which also increased its speed. But at this point, it is too late. Gardevoir strikes Charizard down with a powerful dose of Max Lightning for the final KO. Leon's plans of total annihilation has emphatically and decisively gone up in smoke. Once the defeated Charizard exploded back into its Pokeball, my fabulous fairy types and I have done it. Leon is no longer the unbeatable champion, and I am crowned the new champion of the Galar region. And to further magnify how awesome this moment is, that is how I managed to defeat all of Pokemon Sword using only my favorite Pokemon type without losing a single Fairy type Pokemon. The Fairy types dominated the early portion of this run, but it did get tricky and a little bit turbulent in the second half, but they managed to pull through and complete my first attempt at a Pokemon Sword and Shield Monotype run for fun, completely deathless. A sincere thank you to all who watched from the beginning to the end and enjoyed the experience along with me. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Take care, God bless you all, and keep on shining.